Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Comic Book Cove.
Me?
First? Yes, you. I figured I always introduce myself first. Why not introduce yourself first this time? Go right ahead.
All right. I'm Josh Holderbaum, and this
It's Tom Morris. And that is Lady Margot Elise. And we finally got some normality in the DC universe this week. We've just coming off that gigantic crossover, which we've been talking about the last 3, 4, 5, 6, talking about it quite a bit. Justice League vs. Suicide Squad. And now this week is kind of the calm before the storm. Some normality in the DC universe.
Yeah, but it's still the DC universe, so normal is still... It's still definitely in parentheses at this point.
Yes. This week of comics that we're talking about, and things are back to normal, and it really is back to normal, as we have peace in Atlantis. We have Cyborg still being Cyborg and tracking down. We have Archers in Seattle. We have Fear in Gotham. We have, Superman anomalies, because that's always normal. And we have Jokerized Fries. Mm-hmm. Am I forgetting anything?
Bruce Wayne eating a hamburger with a fork and knife.
Yes. And don't forget the toy in the Batburger Happy Meal. Mm-hmm. Oh, great episode this week. And in this episode of Comic Book Cove, we're going to discuss the following titles. Aquaman number 16, Cyborg number 9, Green Arrow number 16, Superman number 16, Green Lanterns number 16, Nightwing number 14, and Batman number 16. And as always, spoilers ahead. Aquaman number 16, Peace in Our Time. Aquaman finally has some normality in this episode issue. I always mix them up, and I will continue to mix them up. Just know this. But Aquaman, no more war with the United States. Aquaman is helping rebuild Amnesty Bay. Mm-hmm. And he has a really good relationship going on with Mira, right?
A little bit. At least in his mind, he seems to. At this point, Mira is not super sure she wants to marry Aquaman. Mm-hmm. Given the vision she saw while she was studying with the religious group, she sees Aquaman dies at some point. There's after a huge catastrophe in Atlantis, she becomes the queen. She loses it and sees herself destroying the world.
Yes.
Going all Dark Phoenix on everything.
Right. And with that, Mira is starting to push herself away from Aquaman. Mm-hmm. Aquaman doesn't want to have any of that. He still is in love with her, and he wants to be stronger with her, but she is, no, I'm still worried about the visions. Mm-hmm. That's one little wrench in what seems to be Aquaman's shining moment of uniting his people. And we go from that to, on the surface world, Aquaman has become somewhat of of course he was a local celebrity for being, but now his stretches become worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's been on TV with Obama at this point in the comics, so he has what they're dubbing Aquafans. Yep. Who are the Aquaman groupies who follow him everywhere, and he gets mobbed at a press impromptu press event out there, and one of the things he also does is he reconnects with Officer Erica.
Yes.
Who is one of the police officers in Amnesty Bay. She's one of his friends from high school. She confesses that she actually had a crush on him back when he was just normal, hunky Arthur Curry and not
the king
of Atlantis,
seas
and the guy who fights giant monsters to try to destroy his hometown.
Member of the Justice League. Mm-hmm. She was, definitely in awe of the regular person, but now that he's Aquaman, he doesn't belong to the city anymore. He's not just the hometown boy, he belongs to the whole world. Mm-hmm. I think that shook him a little bit because he never really truly realized just how big he was getting. He always looked at himself as, I'm still one of the citizens here. I'm still a member of this community. And she said, no, you're something much bigger. Mm-hmm. And that intimidates me. Not you're so strong, but we can't call you ours anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that bothered him. He never looked at like that in perspective.
Yeah, well, and he's fought so hard to keep both worlds together.
Yes.
I mean, he has a stake in both. And it seems like in that story arc, the last one we had with Nemo and Black Manta, he saved that stretch and kept them both together, but can he keep his hometown at the same time?
Yes.
It's almost like he has to keep his hand on three things, on the U.S., Atlantis, and Amnesty Bay.
And all the while being the peacemaker, Mara isn't really, I don't know if she wants to be by his side or not. She wants to, but I think she is ready to leave for the greater good.
Well, and Mara was a lot more active, shall we say, in resisting some of the U.S.'s orders against Aquaman. I mean, she was a lot more physical, a lot more hot-headed in that process. And now that she's kind of seen what peace can do, maybe she's not as comfortable with that life. Especially if she's, destined to see Aquaman die, her becoming queen, and, destroying the entire world.
Did you notice Aquaman was getting headaches this issue? He was getting headaches a couple of times, and he was just saying, I must be tired, I must be fatigued. It turned out, no. Someone was on the same wavelength as his aquatic telepathy.
Aqua telepathy.
Aqua telepathy.
It now has a name.
I'm still thinking Super Friends here, where the you see the little bubbles.
Circles. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And it looked like we have a new villain for Aquaman named Warhead.
Yeah. Yeah, we see Warhead a little bit throughout the issue. He's essentially holed up in like a laboratory somewhere.
Yes.
He's watching a lot of news from around the world about war and stuff, and it just happens to mention Aquaman a lot. And it looks like he's controlling people just with his thoughts. I mean, sort of like what Aquaman does. I mean, he pushes his thoughts into fish. Warhead seems to push his thoughts into other people, and essentially it kind of makes them his own personal slaves. And they've been bringing him weapons, they've been bringing him painkillers, which seems to indicate that he might be a cyborg, maybe not a straight up robot, because he looks a heck of a lot like a robot. And at the very end, the last three little slaves, I guess you can call them, they say, okay, yes, we'll help you take control of Aquaman. And that makes you wonder, okay, what does Warhead want with Aquaman? And he's watching all this stuff about wars throughout the world, and he's going after a guy who just basically averted a war. So it makes you wonder, does Warhead want more war, or does he want less war?
Right.
With a name like Warhead, you'd think he would want more war, but we'll see where that goes.
I agree with you. We don't know where it goes, but it made for some interesting, as Aquaman was showing that physical fatigue, his mental capacity was starting to suffer. He just blamed, I've been working too hard. No, someone is on the same wavelength, and you two are clashing.
And that might not have ever happened to him before.
No, I bet probably, because if it did, he would recognize, oh, I know what this feeling is. Someone is using my telepathy against me, or someone is using telepathy that I can feel. So I would agree with you that it hasn't happened with him before.
Especially if it's from a mechanical source.
Yep.
Not a unless Warhead's part fish. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe. Well, Aquaman is starting off a new chapter, and as the issues go, we'll see where Warhead goes, and we'll see how Aquaman kind of is a citizen of everywhere, but a citizen of nowhere story arc continues. And that's Aquaman. Cyborg number 9, The Imitation of Life, Part 9, Escape from Star Labs. The villain has a name.
Finally.
Yes.
We don't have to just say that guy who looks like Silas Stone.
Right.
Very nice.
His name is officially Anamoly, and we get the backstory of Anamoly, and as of course it turns out, someone's trying to do something good but creates their own monster.
Yeah, and that's a pretty convoluted backstory he got, is that Silas Stone created the OTAC, the Omniscient Transformational Advanced Cell, as a cell that could attack like cancer tumors, cancer cells, specifically to attack that. When he was testing that, the first test of the cell ended up causing an explosion. That explosion gave his wife Eleanor, who's Cyborg's mom, cancer, which is a cancer that eventually killed her. So Silas took the OTAC cells, took his own DNA, and he created replicants of himself to test out different cancer cures. And one of these replicants, after they were all discarded, after Eleanor eventually died and Silas Stone gave up on that, they were all kind of found on the black market.
Yes.
One of them ended up being experimented on and essentially tortured by these other scientists, and that guy, that one particular OTAC number 13, would become Anamoly.
Yep.
So he ends up having this tremendous hatred of humans for everything that he's endured.
Yep,
I mean, he was created just to be a tool, he was treated like a tool, and I mean, maybe even worse than a tool.
Yep.
He's just taken apart, put back together, and now he wants to do that to humans.
Yeah,
and
his hatred for humanity is quite great. As he's talking about it, he said that there was one scientist that took pity on him, started to have compassion for him, was helping him out. So when Anamoly finally escaped, he recognized that guy was his friend, but he hated humanity so much that he couldn't get over who that person was, and he turned him into his cyborg-esque slave.
Yeah,
that was pretty scary.
Yeah, his lackey. Yeah, and as it turns out, Dr. Eldos is the guy who's been keeping Silas Stone company.
Right.
That's what Silas Stone finds out when he finally asks the freaky cyborg guy who's been with him the entire time, who are you and why are you here? And finally says, oh, I'm the guy who he decided to punish.
Isn't it obvious who I am? I'm the guy that lived in the story. Well, if that's living,
yeah,
what do you do with the other people?
Yeah, especially when you get tank treads for legs and what, like multiple arms on one side? Like, whoa. Okay.
Mad scientist, really mad scientist.
Yeah.
And Cyborg's still in a lot of trouble. He barely gets out of Star Labs. He's with his companion, is it Iki?
Exy.
They have to regroup because to be honest with them, they're way over their head right now. They're unsure what to do. It is just amazing what Cyborg is up against. I liked where he told the kid to get on his back and pretend it was a video game. A little joystick popped out, and they're shooting around, saying, "Hey, didn't I play you against this game?" Like, yeah, you're my. Oh, this is your user tag. That was some humor in a otherwise dreary issue of wow. The father was trying to do something good, but he created his own worst enemy.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, I mean, with all of Anomaly's hatred, he doesn't see what Silas Stone was trying to do. I mean, trying to save his wife. And of course, in the process, Silas kind of alienated Vic. He alienated a lot of his co-workers. And he really ruined a lot of things just by pushing too hard, but he was pushing too hard.
Definitely.
And Anomaly doesn't see that. And, I mean, Cyborg still has a lot of work to do. I mean, he finally gets out of Star Labs after Exy gets into Star Labs, basically to reboot him.
Yep.
There's still, I mean, Anomaly's still there. He's not going anywhere. Silas Stone is still being held somewhere else. We don't know where. We now have essentially the female cyborg, Scarlet Taylor, who's like a former government agent who was, badly burned and injured. She gets essentially turned into a female counterpart to Cyborg. Yep. She's still, in her little tube where Anomaly is, so chances are he has some plans for her. And Cyborg just got out of Star Labs, so he has a lot of work to do. And the last little teaser in this says, the Lord of the Rats.
Yep.
And as you see Cyborg and Exy walking away through the sewer tunnel, there are all these rats behind him.
Yes.
So it makes you wonder, okay, what's coming next?
I think that's a little side story. We're going to get a little reprieve after this issue kind of sets the board. Let's go on a little side quest here for a few issues. Or maybe it does tie in. Maybe Anomaly has a rodent pack of mutant killer rats that are all cybernetic, and he's saying,
if they're all
go.
Cybernetic, I could see that.
But I think it's kind of a side quest, like a couple of issues just to catch our breath and get back. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
How are you liking Cyborg so far?
It's cool. Anomaly makes a nice kind of first villain for him in the DC Rebirth series, because we have Cyborg, who's trying to find his humanity. You have Anomaly, who is essentially not created as a human, but he has sort of human components, and he's thrown that away. I mean, he's declared war on humanity.
Yes.
And so they're two very opposite characters who are clashing, and they both have a connection to the same family. They both essentially have the same father, so to speak. So it's almost essentially Cyborg's evil counterpart. It makes for a nice series. I'm curious to see how it ends because this is a long story arc.
It is.
I'm amazed. 9 issues in and still essentially the same story.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. It's the same story going on, and a lot more left to be told.
Yeah.
Cyborg number 9, The Imitation of Life, is still continuing, and in further issues, I'm sure we're going to get some more definitive actions from Anamoly, Cyborg, Dr. Silas, and the Rat Pack. Well, we're going to take our first break, and we're going to see when we come back what's normal in the other areas of the DC Universe as we discuss Green Arrow number 16, Superman number 16, and Green Lanterns number 16. We'll be back in just a moment.